One of the things that I love most about creating this podcast is having the chance to talk to people in different parts of the world. I caught up with today's guest, who is actually based out in Delhi, and I knew that as soon as we spoke it was going to make for a fascinating episode. Anand Kapoor and his brother Anshul are co-founders of a business called Image Foundry. They specialise in CGI and create amazing images of room interiors and complete buildings, and that's even before a single brick has been laid. While Anshul runs things in Manchester, Anand is based mainly in Delhi, and in 2011, his experiences in India inspired him to found the CSS Group, a charity supporting underprivileged young people through skills training and mentorship. And we hear the story of one young lady in particular that will leave quite the impression on your day. Writer, creator, philanthropist, Anand Kapoor also has some pretty interesting views on self-promotion and social media. Basically, he doesn't like to talk about his achievements, so I feel really lucky that he agreed to share some of his experiences and inspirational projects with me here on One of the Eight.
The poverty I was seeing, it's easy to just accept. It's human nature. Yeah. It is what it is, and you just kind of accept it and move on. That doesn't mean something is right just because it's regular and you see it every day. And when I started becoming immune to what I was seeing, it really, really bothered me.
I'm Jake Worley, and this is One of the Eight, bringing you the real life stories of real world people, the things they have achieved and the things that have inspired them.
Hello.
Hi Anand, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. This is working perfect. Thank you, you're a star.
No, I had no idea. It's all new to me.
You're actually our first international recording. So you're being our guinea pig for the day.
Well, I'm glad it's working.
You've obviously got good Wi-Fi wherever you are.
Yeah, for now, although Mr. Morley has cut it from most of the people right now, but yes.
Okay. Well, I guess if you're ready, then we'll get going.
Let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So, hi guys, coming to you for our latest installment of the One of the Eight podcast. I'm joined today by Anand Kapoor from Delhi in India. Thank you for being on with us. So, I'd like to start with a little bit about your background, because as we'll discuss later on, you're the founder of a very successful business that you actually started with your brother, I believe. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about your childhood growing up and perhaps some of the influences that you might have had from your family.
Sure. Okay, so I was born and brought up in the UK. We were originally born, first lived in Bury, in Whitefield. And we were there till I was about, 9 years old, 9 years old. Then my parents sent me over to India for a year. It wasn't meant to be a year because they were planning on moving back to India. And ironically, that wasn't the first time they tried to get rid of me. They sent me when I was a baby as well. But that was also for some time. But they sent me over and to basically acclimatize and learn the language. So they then decided not to come back to India so I came back to the UK. Then after school, I basically ended up doing subjects that I really didn't want to do at A-level. They were just dreadful. I just didn't want to do. I wanted to do more of the creative subjects. For some reason, I ended up doing geology, biology, and economics, and it was just horrendously painful for me. So after that, I just decided, look, you know what? I want to do the A-levels I wanted to do, because I didn't do as well as I should have done that. So I did my A-levels in a year after that, the subjects I wanted to do, and I got into university. So I went to Exeter, and then from Exeter, I then went into law. I went into specialise in sports law, and I worked in San Francisco for a while. Then after in between all that, I also worked in France.
Okay.
So I kind of have been drawn to living abroad quite a bit, actually, which is ironic because I do like England. I love England. However, I'll come back to that as well. So then I worked, after all of that, after working in San Francisco, I came back to Manchester. Then I wanted to get out of law. And I said, you know what, it was really quite soul-destroying working in law. And one of the cases that really sticks in my mind, I was working for a law firm that represented Manchester United.
Okay, interesting.
And we were getting the guy, one of the players, off for speeding. And he got off clean. He didn't lose his license, nothing. But the guy who went in after him, whose livelihood depended on driving, and was done for speeding again, lost his license.
Right.
So
okay,
the injustice,
a bit of an ethical issue there.
Yeah, the ethics and the injustice and everything, and it just really bothered me. It really bothered me. So I got out of law and I went into PR. So I went to public relations and I worked in Manhattan for a while. In fact, I worked in New York and worked in New Jersey and lived in Manhattan. So I did the reverse commute.
That's interesting. I actually did something very similar. I went to university in New Jersey and basically spent every weekend in New York.
Fantastic. So where in New Jersey did you study?
So I was based at a university in Hackensack in New Jersey. So I think similar to you, it was great to experience kind of having the rural setting of New Jersey, but with the crazy Manhattan lifestyle only 20 minutes away.
Yeah, I hated New Jersey. I just didn't. It was too... The thing is with America, when it's rural, it's really rural.
Yes.
It's not like rural in the UK where you've got quaint villages or there's a village community. Rural's literally you're miles from anywhere.
Yes.
And it felt slightly uncomfortable. And I just didn't like it. And I got there and I was meant to be living in New Jersey, but I said, I can't do this. And it was just going to drive me nuts. But funnily enough, when I went to New York and I was looking for apartments, I couldn't find an apartment I wanted because they were all really expensive. And most of them just felt really impersonal. There was no community some of them, I remember seeing one, it just had a brick wall as a view.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
So I said, yeah, exactly. So I said, you know what, sod it. Let me just spend 90% of my salary went on rent. And I ended up staying in a building called the Archive Building. And I was living literally sandwiched between Monica Lewinsky and Grace Jones.
Wow.
It was a fantastic... I had views of the Empire State Building and the Twin Towers. Literally, I could see both out of my window.
That's incredible.
And it was in the West Village, and it was a really personal, small... It felt like a village. It really felt like a village. And we went back recently, a few years back, and it was really sad, actually, what's happened to that area, because it just lost its soul. Its soul disappeared after 9/11. Right. And I actually was in New York 4 months before 9/11. So yeah, I mean, it was just ironic. So it was a bit of a shock, but I left New York and I got married. So came back to England, and we set up a company with my brother. Looking at getting recruiting people from India to employ in the UK. But then 9/11 happened, immigration just stopped. But parallel to that, I also started designing products for interiors. And I designed stuff out of leather and worked with craftsmen in India. And we supplied stuff to the QE2, to Selfridges, to John Lewis, to all the big department stores. Everything changed after 9/11. It was really crazy. Everything changed. So importing got difficult. Everything got difficult. So we then started outsourcing work to India websites. And one of the clients we were working with was a property developer who asked, can we do 3Ds and CGI? So from there, we went into we organically went into CGI. And organically went into computer graphics. We then got jobs whilst I was there. I was very keen to move that into a wider creative area. So we worked on programs like Grand Designs. We worked on We worked on a couple of other programs where we've won a BAFTA and an Emmy for a couple of the projects we worked on. We worked with the Vatican. That was really interesting. So we scanned St. Nicholas's bones, and we worked with the forensics department in Manchester University, and we recreated what Father Christmas looks like.
Wow.
So that was one of our really exciting projects. Then we opened a studio up in India, and I opened the studio up. I came over, opened it up, set it up from scratch, and moved back to England. And we realized that we needed someone to come and manage it at this end. I came back. I said, look, let me come out for a year. By that stage, I'd had a child. And she was young. She was 3 years old. And I said, let's come out for a year. And a year has been nearly 13 years, and I'm here.
So I guess two of my biggest questions from what you've told me so far. My first would be, what's it like to run a business with a family member? And the second is kind of, what are some of the challenges that you face trying to run a business from two different countries?
Okay, so initially it was really, really hard. And you can't have two bosses in one company.
In the beginning, was there a moment where you kind of both looked at each other and thought, yes, let's do this? Or was it something that maybe you just had that, that brotherly bond that you didn't even think about it? You just
well, it just happened. It just happened. It wasn't like it just happened. I interestingly never wanted to get into business. It scares the hell out of me, business.
Okay.
I just never wanted to do business, but I am in business, I guess, and that's how it is. So what we realised was that one of your question was how do we work between offices and how does that work?
Yeah.
So there's very much independent autonomy. So Anshul runs the UK front end or sales, and I run the back end. At this end. So whilst we were in India, we were doing a lot of projects in India as well at one stage, and we did some great projects. We worked for the Commonwealth Games. We worked with Delhi Airport. We did the animation for Delhi Airport where it was presented to the Prime Minister and the President at the time. So we've done some really interesting projects in India, but we stopped working in India, and we're now focusing solely on global work through the UK office. So that, ironically, also I'm probably more of a people person, and Anshul's more of a technical person. But it's worked well once Anshul's managing that end and I'm managing this end, and I take responsibility for this end, and he takes responsibility for that end. So I think it's really important in any business, especially when you're working with family, that there is clear role definition.
Yes.
And autonomy.
And would you say,
autonomy
for anybody listening, do you think that you have a way of managing the fear of running your own business? Do you have a strategy that kind of gets you through the lows, or is it just, do you just take that dive and have that trust and faith in your own ability?
There's always going to be highs and there's always going to be lows in business of any sort, and it's important to try and understand that. And the problem is, the bigger you get and the more people who rely on you, the more stressful it gets as well, because you're not just running a business for yourself, you're running a business for all the people working under you, because their livelihood depends on you. So there is
which is a big responsibility.
It is, and it's there. And you know what? I think if you start thinking about things like that, it would scare the bejesus out of you. So you just get on with it. You do it. You do take every challenge as it comes up, and you try and plan for the future. But all best laid plans never go right. There's always a curveball somewhere along the line, and I guess you just got to be prepared and play it as it goes.
Okay, it's a very educated approach. I like it. So, as well as running clearly a very successful business, you're also the founder of what I believe to be quite a niche and empowering charity. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that involves.
Sure. So when I came over to India, several things occurred to me, or were being very apparent 13 years back. That firstly, the global attitude of India and the creative sectors from India was very stereotyped. And secondly, what the poverty I was seeing was really, after a point, it gets very difficult to blank out, or it gets very easy to blank out, I should say. But that's what bothered me, because it becomes norm. When something becomes normal, it's easy to just accept. It's human nature.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and you just kind of accept it and move on. That doesn't mean something is right just because it's regular and you see it every day. And when I started becoming immune to what I was seeing, it really, really bothered me. So I then talked to a few people, and at the time I was quite close to the British ambassador and various other people in the creative industry, and talked to them. And it came out that maybe something with creativity and something with poverty, you can put it together. And one of the things that came out, that not everyone wants to be a doctor, lawyer, a beautician, or that they have more options and more desires in life, like everyone. Also, if you went to a traditional care home or orphanage, you have the kids who are incredibly bright, like at any group of kids, and they end up finding their own level and balancing and doing really well in life because they've been given certain opportunities. Then you've got kids at the other end who are going to do more of the manual jobs, and they'll find their level and they'll be okay. The problem mainly was the kids in the middle, and the kids in the middle probably took up about 70% of the kids. And what opportunities lay ahead for them if they're not being offered anything? So once they were in a care home or orphanage, they were okay until they get to 18. After 18, they are forced to leave. So they're back on the street, but they're back on the street in a much more emotional way, because they've been promised the world. They've been told, study hard, work hard, look after this, do this, be a good citizen. So then suddenly at 18, they have those options open and they're back on the street because there's no one there to guide them. And that is more destructive and more soul destroying, and causes a lot of social problems as well, and resentment, and it actually puts people in a really bad place. So we said, okay, so that is our target group of kids, kids who are going to turn 18, and what we can offer them. So we looked at the creative sectors and looked throughout the creative sectors, and we realized that, okay, so we need to look at how we can place these kids, say, from in the culinary world, in fashion, in art, in dance, and we took those sectors and we helped a lot of kids. So, for example, in dance is not the most reliable career, in that you're going to get a job every week, or it's a day in, day out.
Yes.
So we ensured that child was being taught yoga as well. So he would be able to teach yoga as well as dance, because they were both those things were complementary to a certain extent. But then we brought in, to help raise funds, we were the first organisation to bring in Michelin chefs en masse. And we did a charity dinner.
Okay.
And it was the first time 6 Michelin chefs were brought in one go for a event. So it was quite a big thing. And now it's just every week there's a Michelin chef coming. So over the years, we've brought in Michelin chefs, and we've worked with a lot of them. A few years ago, we were working with a charitable home, and they said they have a young girl, who really wants to become a chef, but the only options open to her are becoming a hairdresser or beautician or a nurse. And she wanted to go into become a chef so badly. So we'd been working with a lot of chefs locally and internationally. So we took her on board and we placed her and we trained her up. Her background was pretty horrendous. She was, her parents passed away. Her elder brother basically went and spent all the money that was left on drugs. Her elder sister died, and it was just her and her brother on the street. Her brother got taken in by a family member, but she didn't. Eventually, she went through the system and found different homes, and a distant aunt basically took her in.
Okay.
And she took her in, but she said, right, after a few weeks, you need to go and earn your way. And she was only about 12, 13 at this time. So she got sent to work in a shoe factory. And if she didn't get paid, she got beaten by the aunt. And it just went bad to worse. And within that whole thing, she was raped by her cousin. She left there and she had to have an abortion. And her life was pretty crappy, for want of a better word, until when we came across her. And we wanted to really help her to fulfill her dreams. We brought in 10 female Michelin chefs from all over the world. I think one of them, Anna Ross, is now the best female chef in the world.
Yeah.
And we brought them all together and did various workshops, and we trained her up and put her in a job, and she became financially independent, which was the key. She's now a trained chef, and this year she applied for MasterChef and she got auditioned and shortlisted for MasterChef India.
That's incredible.
So her life has been on full circle, and she's now giving back. So the kids we've trained become our biggest ambassadors, basically.
So do you get to stay in regular contact with her?
We do, but one of the things we are happy, once we've held their hand for so long and we've supported them, and we don't hear from them for 12 months, 6 months, we're happy when we don't hear from them because we know they are settled. We know they are working. We know they have got an income. We do follow it up and we do check up where they are, so we know they're settled. But if they don't call us on a daily basis or weekly basis, we know that they're happy and they're settled.
Okay, so there's quite a common phrase here in the UK, I'm sure it's spread around the world too, that if you give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, but if you teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. And I guess I'm kind of getting the feel that that's kind of the goal of your charity.
Well, that was one of the key proverbs or phrases that we adopted for the charity. And it really sums it up, basically, absolutely.
So does that kind of define your charity's mission of a charity that doesn't believe in charity?
Totally, exactly. We don't believe in charity. We want to help the kids get back onto their feet and support themselves and support the people around them. One of the things we found as well, that gender was really holding kids back, but it wasn't just gender externally, it was internally. So we got girls from all over the world to write letters about their hopes and dreams for the future, including India, and got artists to create pieces inspired by that.
Wow.
And we then did a series of workshops where we educated over 2,000 boys and girls on gender. And it was and that led us to turning 40 girls into chefs and sending them for training. We then had these brilliant resource of letters, and those letters we said we need to do something with them. So we started sending them out throughout the world to various influential people and celebrities and non-celebrities to reply to these letters. So we've had responses from likes of Donatella Versace, Sherry Blair, a 13-year-old who climbed Everest, a woman who escaped an abusive marriage and left the Arab Emirates without a passport and just escaped an abusive marriage and started a new life. So we've got these inspiring letters that we're hoping to turn into a book. And we're just now trying to pull together a few more big names to try and get into the book, to respond to these letters and take it from there. And that will act as a starting point for a youth-led program that we're trying to implement. I mean, interestingly, I was asked to join the advisory committee for the Nelson Mandela Trust. So that's something that they're trying to do something really big in India as well. So that's basically what the story, and that's been my journey. And I guess what India's allowed me to do is to do all these things because you have certain levels of infrastructure and support that allows you to free your time off to do other things, which is good.
So, as I'm sure our listeners have probably figured out by now, you're clearly a very driven and decorated man. But from what I've been told, obviously we've got you to come on here and talk about some of the things that you've been working on and that you've achieved and some of your experiences. But I've been told that generally you're often quite reluctant to discuss. I mean, some of the names that you've, either worked with through your charity or your business are big names. But generally, I've been told you're quite reluctant to discuss this.
Yeah, you know what? I don't like talking about, okay, so in most places, the first time you meet someone, you'll know, they will tell you who they've done, where they've worked, what they've done. I don't think that's the right way to judge a person. I think you judge a person on who they are themselves. And I don't like talking, it shouldn't be about my achievements or what I've done or who I know. It should be about me and myself and the type of person I am. But the world's changing, and it's really, really changing. And people, you need to start talking about, to differentiate yourself, who you are, what you do, who you know, what you've achieved. But I've always found that really difficult to talk about. I don't mind in a conversation. This has been an interview where you've kind of directly put me in a position to talk about those things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in the way that, oh, look what I've done, or look what I've achieved, or look who I know, because that's just, that makes me incredibly uneasy. But the world is changing incredibly. And I think there's a difference between self-promotion and honesty. And a lot of people go on self-promotion. And I think it boils down to, your motive behind what you're saying. If you're talking about things in a more honest manner and it comes out, I think that's still slightly different. But I don't normally like saying anything. I mean, or who I know, or what I know, or what you've achieved. What am I doing it for? So, for example, with the charity, what am I doing it for? Am I doing it for me, or am I doing it for the kids? So I don't need to take center stage. I don't need all that.
I guess having a mindset like that probably makes it difficult for you to align yourself with today's kind of almost compulsory need for social media and the culture that brings of self-promotion.
I hate it. I really hate it. And I don't know when becoming a braggart was a good thing, to be quite honest. I've always been taught that just, keep it to yourself. I was brought up that way. It was, to actually boast and talk about yourself wasn't really a good thing. And it's pretty old school, I guess. I think it boils down to why you're doing something. It's about you being honest and your voice being honest. I don't want to share my private life for the sake of getting more work. I don't feel that's right. I'm not a Kardashian. I'm not. I've grabbed some celebrity and I'm just going to take a picture and put it up. It's just not me. So it's a really catch-22, and I'm still, whilst I have reconciled it to a certain extent in my mind, after speaking with you now, I've realised I haven't reconciled it whatsoever.
So finally, we ask every one of the 8 that we get to come on the show to share something that has inspired them, whether that be music, a book, a film, an event, or maybe even an individual. So Anand, we'd like to ask you, who or what has inspired you?
That's a tough one. And the reason it's tough, I don't think it's any one thing that inspires. There's too many inspirational people out there to really say that. It's just, it's this one person. However, I guess if most people are honest, and they can say that X has inspired, but most people are inspired initially by their parents, and they're the first role models you ever have in your life. And I think that's something that I would probably say that my parents inspire me, but I'm also inspired by so many different things. I could be inspired by something today and an article I could read today. The key is to being open to inspiration, as opposed to saying it's just one thing that inspires me. Because I think if you're open to being inspired regularly, it allows for greater diversity and greater opportunities and greater change. Nobody's an expert in anything. I'm still learning on a daily basis. And if I didn't learn and wasn't inspired on a daily basis, I wouldn't be able to grow as an individual. And I think you're always growing. I think being open to inspiration, wherever that comes from something of beauty to something of fear. I think fear can inspire you as well to make a change. And I think it's important to be open to inspiration.
Well, I mean, that's a fantastic answer, and I think probably quite a unique one from the answers we get. So thank you very much for that. And honestly, I mean, keep doing what you're doing because you're a very inspiring man.
There are almost 8 billion people on our planet, and Anand Kapoor is one of the 8. You can find links to Anand's work and the things that inspire him, as well as more on Lilima's story online at oneofthe8.com. Everyone has a story to share. Everyone has something to give. Everyone can inspire. One of the 8 is a movement of real-world people from across the globe, sharing real-life stories, inspiring others, enriching lives, and giving something back. I am, you are, everyone is one of the 8. Now streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Join the movement at oneofthe8.com.